We're going to be adding start and end menus to our space shooter game today. We're also going to be learning about the difference between vector and raster files. I'm going to show you how to use Inkscape, which is a free program you can use to work with vector files. Make sure you watch this video all the way through and take notes. And as always, we are going to start with going to our flash drive, Colstock Game Dev Space Shooter, and launching our Construct 2 project. We're going to be adding some new layouts today. We're going to add a start layout with an event sheet, which will be the first layout that the user sees. It'll be our start menu. So we're going to rename it to start. We're also going to rename its corresponding event sheet to start event sheet. Layouts consist of layers. Go to the start layout and let's rename its only layer to content. Awesome. Let's go back to the projects tab. As you can see right now, the start layout looks white. It's completely blank. Let's select it and change its layout size to 800 by 800. Let's take a look at its only layer, make sure it's active, and let's change the background color to be black. So that's 0 for the red channel, 0 for the green, 0 for the blue. And press OK. Awesome. This start layout is going to be the first thing that the user sees, and it's going to have a startup menu. So we need to go back to our project and change the first layout project setting to start. This will ensure that this is the first thing that the user sees. Before continuing on, make sure you have already downloaded the start and end menu vector pack from the class website. I just downloaded it and it's in my downloads directory. I'm going to cut it and put it inside my Space Shooter Project's assets directory. Right click, paste. Then I'm going to open it with a special vector-based program called Inkscape. I'll explain more about vectors versus rasters in a minute, but I want you to get familiar with the tool. If you click on the canvas, you'll see all of the items are grouped together. You can use the Control U, as in ungroup, to ungroup the items. As you can see, there's some more items that seem to be grouped together. Control U, and you will ungroup them. Let's practice using this. We're going to select the space shooter plate that you see here. We're just going to drag around it. If you go to File, Export PNG Image, you'll see that a menu comes up. I want you to change the image size to 500 by 500, and we're going to create a transparent PNG that we can use in our game. We're going to call it start-menu-500 by 500. I really like to put the width and height dimensions in the names of my files. Once again, a 500 by 500 image that you will save in your assets directory, and you're going to call it start-menu-500 by 500.png. When you've done that, you can click export and it will create a custom image that you will then be able to use in your game. So we've opened our vector file, we've selected part of it, and we've exported it as a transparent PNG to our assets directory under Colstock Game Dev Space Shooter Assets. Now we can go back to our game. We make sure that our start layout is selected. Make sure the content layer is what is active, and we're going to add a new object type. Insert, new object, a sprite, and we're going to call it start menu, and press insert. As you can see, this is going to go in the content layer. That's what you see highlighted in yellow. When the edit image dialog box appears, go to your flash drive, Colstock Game Dev Space Shooter Assets, and find the image that you just exported. It should show up like this. If you want to readjust the collision polygon, you're free to do so. And then you can close with the red X. There we are. Now we need to position this onto the layout, onto this content layer. So I'm going to right click, and it's a really handy tool. You can go to Align, Window, Center horizontally, Align, Window, Center vertically. This will perfectly center the sprite on the screen. So you've been dealing with raster files your entire life. You can think of raster files as photographs or the images that you're accustomed to seeing on the internet, the .pngs, the .jpegs. When we're in Inkscape, we're dealing with something called a vector file. Let's Control U to ungroup. We're going to be selecting out just a small part of this vector file called Get Ready. Vector files store information as mathematical calculations, not as individual pixel values. So you can edit a vector file and create raster files from it without losing any quality. We're going to be exporting this Get Ready part of the vector file. We're going to call it Get Ready. We're going to make sure the dimensions are 256 by 46. And we're going to export it once again to our assets directory, which will allow us to include it in our game as a new sprite. Go ahead and call it Get Ready and insert that onto the layout. Choose your Get Ready image you just exported. Adjust its collision polygon if you want. And we're going to position this one more specifically using its position property. We're going to position it at 401 and 430. So we've inserted the raster file, the PNG, as a sprite. We're going to add a behavior to the Get Ready object type, and we're going to be adding the flash behavior, and we'll be using that a little bit later. Let's go back to Inkscape. We've got some more work to do. Remember, Control U to ungroup. You can zoom just like you do in most programs with pluses and minuses. We're going to be selecting just the start piece of the vector, and we're going to be changing its size. You'll notice that Inkscape will proportionately size the files. What's great about this is that you can export images of whatever size you need without losing quality. You can only do this with vector files. You cannot edit a raster like a PNG and JPEG and not lose quality. That's why we use vector files. Export the start piece as 237 by 63. Call it start-237 by 63.png. Export it to your assets directory. Go back, add it to your project. Call it start. Insert. Once again, this is going on your content layer of your start layout. Go to your assets directory. There is the raster that you just exported. You can adjust its collision polygon as you want and insert it. Once again, we're going to position this using its position property because we want to get it exactly perfect. 401 by 430. You will see that the start object is on top of the Get Ready. We're going to make this initially invisible, and you'll see why this is important in a moment. And then we're going to take a moment to save our project. Let's take a look at what's on our layout. We've got 3 sprites: the Start menu, Get Ready, and Start Sprite. Before moving on, insert new object, mouse. You're also going to insert a keyboard object. In order to interact with the user's mouse or keyboard in Construct 2, you must add it to your project as an object type first. So we just added the mouse and keyboard object type. Let's move on to doing some coding. Let's go to the Start Event sheet, and we're going to start by adding a global variable called Game Over. This is going to be a text variable with the initial value of lose. This variable will store why the game ended. Did the game end because the user won or because they lost? If we have this information, then we can use it in our code to do and show the user different things. Let's make sure we stay organized. Right click and add a group to this event sheet. We're going to call it Start of Game. This group is going to include all of the events that are involved when our game first begins. And press OK. The first event we're going to add is an on start of layout event, which is going to show the get ready sprite flashing, and then it's going to make the user wait. This is ideal for when you need to preload resources or when you want the user's information. The first action, choose get ready and make it flash. Change the on and off time to ½ second and the duration to 8 seconds. This is going to cause the get ready sprite to flash for 8 seconds, on and off, on and off. Now let's add a wait action. While get ready is flashing for 8 seconds, we're going to force the system to wait the same amount of time, 8 seconds. Go ahead and put that inside of the start of game group. And let's add a comment. So what do? We added an event that at the start of the start layout will make the get ready sprite flash, and then we're going to wait. Let's add another event. Once again, choose get ready and on flash ended. After the 8 seconds of flash, we're going to add another action. We are going to hide the get ready sprite by setting its visibility property to invisible, and we are going to show the start sprite using its visibility property, making it visible. Remember how we made the start sprite initially invisible? This is when we're making it visible. So once get ready is done flashing, we will make it invisible and we will make the start sprite visible to indicate to the user that they can press or click anything to begin the game. We need to add one more event that will detect whether the user has interacted with their keyboard or mouse. Go to Add Event, choose the Start object, and is visible. We're going to add a sub-event to this. Choose the keyboard on any key pressed. Let's make this sub-event into an OR block by right-clicking, make OR block, and then let's add an additional OR condition, or mouse on any click. Press done. What action are we going to perform? System, go to layout by name, and specify space. So only if the start sprite is visible, check to see whether the keyboard or mouse has been interacted with, and if so, start the game by going to the space layout. So only if the start sprite is visible, remember it's initially hidden, check to see whether a keyboard key has been pressed or whether the mouse has been clicked in any way. If it has, then go to the space layout. Remember, the space layout is the only level that we have in our game right now. So this is like saying, start the game. Let's stay organized by dragging the comment and event into the start of game group. And now it's time to test our project. If I run the project, I should now see the start layout first. It should show me the get ready sprite flashing for 8 seconds. While it's flashing, no user interaction occurs. But once the start sprite appears, anything I click or press will start the game. Voila. All right, let's go ahead and close things down. Stay organized. We're going to add a new layout with an event sheet. Similar to the start layout, we're going to create an end layout. Create it with an event sheet, rename that to end event sheet. Make sure it's selected, change its layout size to 800 by 800. We're following the same steps for when we created the start layout. This one's going to be different though. We're going to have 2 layers. Rename the existing layer to Win. Change its color to black, 0, 0, 0 for all the channels. Press the plus icon and let's add another layer. We're going to call it Lose. Make sure the Lose layer is on top of the Win layer. Change its background color to 0, 0, 0. Another thing you need to look for in this particular case is that transparent is no. Okay? These layers are not see-through, so they are not transparent. Let's go back to Inkscape. Let's do some more practice. Let's minus to zoom out. We're going to grab the Congrats You Win winning menu plate. Make sure it's selected and change its width and height to 500 by 500. It should be perfectly square. We're going to call this raster that we're about to export Win Menu 500 by 500. Export that to your assets directory. Go back to Construct 2. Make sure you have the Win layer selected on the end layout. We're going to go to our object types. Remember, Win layer is selected and active. Sprite, Win menu. Click, browse to the Win menu that you just exported as a raster image from Inkscape. You can play with its collision polygon if you'd like. Insert into your project. Using the same technique as before, we're going to center this perfectly to the window, both vertically and horizontally. Cool. Back to Inkscape. We are now going to export the Game Over plate. Select it in Inkscape, make sure it's 500 by 500, and we're going to export this as a transparent PNG, a raster file, calling it lose-menu-500 by 500, and then press export. This will put the PNG in your assets directory. This time, make sure you are on the lose layer. Sometimes it's easier just to deselect the other layer so you're only dealing with the layer you want. Insert this lose plate, this lose menu as a sprite. Call it lose menu. Select the raster file you just exported. Adjust its collision polygon. You're going to be placing this perfectly centered on the lose layer of your end layout. So what have we just done? We created an end layout that has 2 layers, a lose and a win. The win layer has the win menu, and the lose layer has the lose menu. See how the lose layer is on top? Back to Inkscape. We need to export the restart portion of the vector file. We need to create a raster file out of this. We're going to make it 237 by 45, just like with all the other raster files you exported. You're going to give it a meaningful name, restart-237 by 45.png, placing it in your assets directory. Click export, and now there should be a sprite you can add to your project. Insert new object, sprite, let's call it restart. We're going to take this sprite and we're going to position it on both our win and lose layer. Adjust the collision polygon. Click the red X to close. We're going to position this on our lose layer by putting it exactly at 401, 550 so that it's centered on the game over menu plate. So that's our lose layer. We need to add the exact same sprite on our win layer. Let's go to layers, deselect lose, select win, go back to the project, and drag an instance of the restart object onto the win layer. Let's position it precisely as well at 401, 430. That'll center it perfectly on the plate. And now both of our layers, the lose and win layer, have the restart sprite positioned perfectly on the layer. Excellent. So we're dealing with our end layout. Remember, every layout has an event sheet. The end event sheet is associated with our end layout. And remember, our layout has 2 layers, win and lose. Let's start things off by creating a group. Let's call it end of game. This is going to contain all of the events, all the code that runs once the game has ended. We start things off with the on start of layout event. And we need to add some sub events. Go to system, compare 2 values. When the game ends, we're going to look at the game over global variable. If its value is win, we're going to do certain things. And when its value is lose, we're going to do certain things. So add another sub event. Once again, comparing 2 values. Game over, we're checking to see whether its value is lose. So at the start of layout, we're going to do something if the game over global variable is win, something if the game over global variable is lose. Specifically, we're going to show and hide layers. Add an action, which sets layer visibility. Choose the lose layer and make it invisible. Add another action, system, set layer visibility, and this time, win. So when the game ends, if the game over variable has the value of win, we hide the lose layer and show the win layer. Alternatively, if at the end of the game over global variable is lose, we are going to hide the win layer and show the lose layer. Okay, so what do we have here? We have a single event on the start of the end layout. We are going to check the game over global variable. If the game over global variable is win, we hide the lose layer and show the win layer. If the game over global variable has a value of lose, we're going to hide the win layer and show the lose layer. On our end menu, we're actually going to force the user to click on the restart sprite. So we need a new event, choose mouse, on object clicked, and we want when the left mouse button is pressed, clicking on the restart object. We're going to try to put this in our group. Looks like we have to move it to the top. Oh, okay. Let's move that comment up, that event up. Here we go. Let's add an action. System, go to layout by name, start. So when the restart sprite is clicked on by the mouse, we are going to restart the game by going to the start layout. Whenever the left mouse button clicks on the restart object, we will effectively restart our game by going to the start layout. This is pretty much all the code that we need for our end layout. What's missing is we need to tie this in. We need to incorporate this into the existing game logic, which is in the space event sheet. The space event sheet is going to have to set the value of game over and itself send the user to the end layout. Let's go to the space event sheet. Let's go to the goal. When the spaceship reaches the dock, we don't want to restart the layout. We want to change the value of game over to win because we won the game. Go to set value for global variable, and we're going to set its value to win. Now that the global variable is set, we can add another action to go to the end layout. Done. There's one more place where we need to incorporate these code changes. Let's go to health. Remember, we're tracking how many spaceships we have left, how many lives the player has all the time. In the else block is when we normally are out of lives. We don't want to restart layout. We want to set the game over global variables value to lose. And then send the user to the end layout. Once that occurs, all that code that we just put in the end event sheet will run. Remember how the end event sheet looks for the value of game over. All right, let's go back to start and let's play our game. Get ready should flash. When it's done, we have the opportunity to click or press a keyboard button. All right, here we are. Let's test it out. Our first mission is to see if we can end the game by losing. That should be pretty easy. We'll just collide with meteors. All right, 1 life left. Okay, now there should be a pause. Since the game over global variable was set to lose, I see the lose menu. All right, restart. What happens if I win my game? What happens if I make it to the dock? The game over global variable is set to win. And instead, I see the win menu. Also with the restart button, which I can use to restart my game. Make sure you watch this video all the way through, taking detailed notes, and then perform the steps yourself. Great job.